In a town where time seemed to stand still, a young clockmaker named Silas lived among the echoes of 1,000 silent ticking hearts and ancient secrets. Everyone in this world looks for a perfect moment to begin their journey, but Silas believed that perfection required a miracle that had not yet arrived. He was the most talented craftsman the village had ever seen, yet his workshop remained silent, filled with the ghosts of machines that refused to pulse. The walls were lined with masterpieces of brass and steel, all covered in layers of dust, waiting for a heartbeat that Silas was hesitant to give. His talent was a cage, and his expectations were the bars. He waited for a sign, a signal, or a tool that would make everything finally right. When the townspeople brought their broken treasures, Silas would only sigh. He believed his hands were meant for something far greater than mere common repairs. He was obsessed with the legend of the eternal gear, a mythical component that supposedly allowed a clock to run forever without ever needing a wind. "Cannot fix these simple toys," he would mutter. "I am waiting for the gear that will change the nature of time itself and my life." But the gear never came, and the years began to slip through his fingers like dry sand, leaving him older and more isolated in his quiet shop. The only sound was the rhythmic ticking of one solitary clock, a constant reminder of the life he was choosing to let pass him by every day. He chose to stop, to wait for a miracle that existed only in his mind, while the real world outside continued to move without his guiding hand. Procrastination is not just a pause. It is a silent thief that eats away at the value of our existence, turning potential into rusted, useless metal. He spent his nights lost in ancient texts, chasing a dream of a component that would make his work effortless, and his legacy immortal and perfect. We often wait until we feel ready or complete before we start, forgetting that it is the act of doing that actually builds our own completeness. Outside the workshop, the village began to suffer. Without the central town clock to guide them, the farmers missed the precise windows for planting their crops. The rhythm of the community was broken. Time had become a chaotic blur, and the prosperity they once knew was fading into a memory of better days. Silas ignored the plight of his neighbors. To him, their needs were trivial compared to the grand machine he planned to build one day in the future. An elderly man once begged him to fix a music box for his dying wife, but Silas simply stared at his blueprints, claiming he lacked the parts. The man left with a broken heart, and Silas stayed in his cold room, surrounded by parts that could have brought joy, but instead brought only silence. The atmosphere of the town grew heavy. The lack of movement and progress created a stagnation that felt like a thick fog rolling through the narrow streets. His workshop became a graveyard of intentions. Every unfinished gear was a promise he had made to himself and broken, a weight upon his tired soul. He waited for a moment of divine inspiration, but inspiration is a guest that only visits those who are already busy working at their craft. He was waiting for a perfect time, but time is never perfect. It is only raw material, waiting for a master to shape it into something meaningful. Darkness swallowed the shop, mirroring the emptiness in his heart. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was a loud scream of missed opportunities and wasted life. He fell into a deep, troubled sleep. A sleep born of exhaustion and the heavy burden of doing nothing while the world moved on without him. As his mind drifted, the physical world dissolved, and he was pulled into a landscape where the consequences of his inaction took a terrifying, visible form. Silas stood in a place where time had no power, a wasteland of frozen moments, where the air was cold and the sky held no sun. He reached out to touch a massive gear, but it was cold as ice. The absolute silence was suffocating, a heavy weight pressing against his very chest. Time is not scary, he realized. What is truly terrifying is the total silence of time when it stops moving, when progress becomes an impossible dream. From the mists emerged a figure of ancient strength, a horse, thin and silver, representing the power Silas had allowed to wither away through his own neglect. The horse did not speak with words. but its presence filled Silas's mind with a question that cut deeper than any blade he had ever used. "Do you wait for a gear to fix the world?" the horse seemed to ask. "Or do you use the clocks as a shield for your laziness?" With every strike of its hoof, a vision appeared in the dust. A future where Silas was a bent old man, dying alone in a silent shop. He saw the end of the path he was currently walking. A life of almost. A life of someday, and a life that ultimately meant absolutely nothing. The weight of his own inaction crashed down upon him. He realized that the perfect moment was a ghost he had been chasing into his own grave. He reached out, his voice a broken whisper in the void. "Help me," he pleaded. "I don't want to be the man who only waited." The horse reared up, its hooves glowing with a fierce light. It was time for the illusion to shatter, and for the truth to be fully revealed. Suddenly, the stillness broke. A whirlwind of metal and memory swept Silas into the center of a storm. A chaotic symphony of everything he had avoided. He saw every moment he had wasted, every request he had denied, and every hour he had spent staring at a drawing that held no life. The silence was replaced by a roar. The roar of reality demanding to be felt. The roar of a life that refused to be ignored any longer. He realized that even a broken gear was better than no gear at all. Action, even if imperfect, was the only way to escape the void. The nightmare reached its peak, a crescendo of sound and light that forced his soul back into the world of the living and the present. He woke with a start, the echo of the horse's neigh still ringing in his ears, his breath coming in short, jagged bursts of sheer panic. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the room in the cold colors of a new day. A day that would be different from all others. He didn't look for the drawing of the golden gear. Instead, he looked at the rusty pliers and the old brass wheels sitting right in front of him. The secret was never in a magical component. The secret was in the hands that were willing to get dirty, to work with what was available. He worked with a feverish intensity he had never known. Each movement was a prayer. Each turn of a screw, a step toward his own redemption. He was no longer waiting for the future. He was building it, one small piece at a time, finding joy in the simple friction of metal. His fingers moved with a grace born of years of suppressed talent. The workshop was no longer a tomb. It had become a vibrant womb of creation. Tick, tock. The first sound of life returned to the room. It was a small sound, but to Silas, it was louder than any thunder. One by one, the silent giants woke up. The room was filled with the heartbeat of progress, a symphony of movement that chased away the shadows. He realized that now is the only time that actually exists. Everything else is just a dream or a memory that has no power over us. He didn't wait to finish the grand masterpiece. He took what he had fixed and walked out into the village to mend what had been broken. He returned the time to his people. He saw the light return to their eyes as they realized the rhythm of their lives had been restored. He climbed to the center of the town, fixing the public markers of time, ensuring that everyone could once again move forward together in harmony. The village transformed. The fields that were once barren were now filled with the sounds of work and the hope of a bountiful future harvest. Life responded to action. Nature itself seemed to celebrate the return of the clockmaker's will, rewarding the town with the first signs of growth. He became a teacher, sharing the wisdom of his craft. He taught them that the most important part of any machine is the hand that starts it. The perfect time had arrived, not because of a miracle, but because one man decided that right now was good enough to begin his journey. He finally fixed the music box. The melody was a tribute to the time he had lost and a promise to never let another moment slip away. He realized that the eternal gear was not made of gold, but of the persistent will to act, to serve, and to live in the present. His shop was a beacon of life in the town. People didn't just come for repairs. They came to see the man who had mastered time. His hands were no longer clean, but they were finally useful. And in their usefulness, They found a beauty that perfection could never have achieved. He was the master of his craft, not because he was flawless, but because he was present. He was the clockmaker of his own destiny. Now, Silas sits in the sun, watching the grains of sand. He understands that every grain is a gift, a tiny opportunity to be something more. Do not let your life be a series of days spent waiting for a miracle gear that will never arrive from the shadows of the future. Look around at the young hearts who have learned the lesson. They don't wait for permission to succeed. They simply begin where they are standing. They are the ones who overcome the trap of procrastination, understanding that the only way to finish is to take the very first step today. Time is a river that only flows in one direction. You can either stand on the bank and watch it pass, or you can dive in. What are you waiting for? Is it a better job, a better mood, or a sign from the heavens that may never come to your door? Put away the blueprints of your perfect life and pick up the tools of your actual life. The world needs your action, not your intentions. Be the clockmaker of your own soul. Start with the fragments of the present to create a masterpiece that will stand the test of time. The sun rises on a world of possibility. Every morning is a new chance to stop waiting and start doing. The choice is entirely yours. The secret is out. There is no secret gear. There is only you, your hands, and this very moment. Make it count before it's gone. The time is now. The place is here. Your journey begins the moment you decide to stop waiting. Go forth and create your own time.